Hey, come over here. I want to talk about Superman.
All right, let's talk about Superman and Superman's special day coming up.
So, April 18th,
April 18th is Superman
Superman
Day.
Day.
Get
Dun, dun, dun,
excited. Da, da, da,
dun.
da. It's funny, like that pose. There's like a famous TED talk that's about power posing. I think they make the connection to Wonder Woman more. But I always think about, the difference between Clark Kent and Superman is ultimately a difference of posture. It's like everybody's got sort of a Clark Kent mode where you're more hunched over, you're not sure of yourself, you're not confident. And then when you're Superman, I think everyone can relate to this at times. You're Superman, you're more confident, shoulders back,
Arms akimbo.
arms akimbo, chest expanded,
Yeah.
lungs full. But that's Superman. It's one of the things that is inspiring about him,
Yes.
I guess you'd say.
So, you were telling me earlier that it's Superman Day,
Mhm.
but it doesn't really correlate with Superman's birthday, Superman's Earth Day.
Yeah, well, actually, a couple different points there, but let's talk about the birthday first. In continuity, in the comics, Superman's birthday is appropriately enough not April 18th, it's February 29th, aka
Leap
Leap
Day.
Day, as in leaping tall buildings in a single bound. I assume is the reference they're going
That's
for,
brilliant.
and not just a joke about how Superman's only technically like 6 years old or whatever it is.
Yeah, and it makes it even better because you build up for 4 years.
Yeah. So, yeah, in Kryptonian terms, there's all these made up months that they have in the comics. So he's technically born the Kryptonian month of Eorx, I guess is how you say it. Eorx. I don't know. But April 18th, as opposed to his birthday, is a date that came into effect because of the lawsuits that the original creators filed trying to get the copyright for Superman back. So in the court documents, they eventually decided, legally speaking, for copyright purposes, Superman was first published April 18th, 1938, which you know about copyright, right?
No, but you do.
A little bit. But you know what that means for Superman is copyright only lasts for so long. It's not in perpetuity forever. So after 95 years of corporate ownership, Superman will be in the public domain, free for everyone to use in the short time frame of just under 8 years now. In 2034, you can finally freely do your own Superman comic
Excellent.
or movie or
Now
radio
I can
show.
finally sell all of my Superman paintings that I've been making over the course of my lifetime.
But it has to be the version of Superman that premiered in 1938. So it's got sort of a different S. It's not, this is the newest movie version of the Superman S. There's the more typical one, which looks like two fish swimming past each other. That's more noticeable when you start to try to draw
What
it.
about Clark Kent?
Clark Kent was always there from the beginning.
Okay.
So you could use Clark Kent, you could use Lois Lane, you can use Lex Luthor. They were all there pretty early on.
Okay, so it's not just Superman that's going in the public domain. It's Clark Kent, Lois Lane,
Yeah.
Lex Luthor.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Is there any other?
Well, he's strong and he can, like we said, he can leap tall buildings
What
in a
about
single bound.
Jimmy Olsen?
I was just thinking of that. I think he comes up a little later, but you put me on the
Oh,
spot.
I'm sorry.
That's the limit of my Superman trivia. I don't know when Jimmy Olsen first appeared or for what, but I know with Kryptonite, the story about the origin of Kryptonite is that whoever was the voice actor for Superman on the radio show wanted a vacation. So they had to invent a way for Superman to be, like sick or ill or unable to move or talk. So they invented kryptonite as like a weakness for Superman. So they could have like an episode where it's like, oh no, Superman is under the effects of kryptonite and can't respond to anything. But it was so the voice actor could take a vacation. At least that's what I heard.
Well, that's a cool story.
Yeah, Superman also, I mean, there's been many different acting interpretations of him over the years, movies, TV, like we mentioned, radio. You got some favorites in there? I know what they are. I'm fishing.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to find out yours because I don't think that you actually said who your favorite was.
Yeah.
But my favorite is Tom Welling from the Smallville series. I think that the way that he approached Clark Kent and Superman was with curiosity that I think would be kind of the number one thing for somebody that came to this planet, even if they were raised here, knowing that they're from somewhere else. You must have this curiosity about that place as well as all the people there and why you're there, why you were sent there. So I think that he did a great job at embodying that curiosity and innocence, really.
Absolutely, I'd agree with that. You made a point about how he's really playing it as Clark Kent is the primary identity. Obviously, in Smallville, if you know anything about Smallville, he's not Superman yet.
No.
Like, spoiler alert for the last episode of 10 seasons, he becomes Superman at the very, very end.
Yes.
But he's really not doing the secret identity thing.
No.
So to him, Clark, for that acting purposes and character purposes, Clark is the main and really only identity, which you could contrast with like Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, and really, I think everybody else who's played Superman plays it as Superman is their main identity. That's who they're comfortable in. And Clark Kent is like a cosplay that they're like awkward and weird. And I just don't like that kind of portrayal because he was raised on Earth as Clark Kent. That should be the person that he's comfortable being. That's him, his true self. And then he cosplays as a superhero.
Yeah.
And I think that Tom Welling is the only one to have really hit that.
Yeah, that's fair. So, another way of looking at that is when someone like Christopher Reeve or other actors play Superman, they play Clark Kent as sort of this like bumbling nerd
and it's clumsy.
And it's not really them, but they've got a secret. Like when people leave the room, they're like, I'm a Superman the whole time. Do you think that is too mischievous on Superman's part, or he's like too much of a trickster or too much of a jerk, basically?
Yeah, it's just not authentic to me.
Should Superman be a scamp, or should he be like always a morally upstanding Boy Scout with no flaws?
No, I don't think no flaws because, he was raised among humanity and humanity is not perfect. But I think that being a scamp would be too easy for him because, you've got all these powers that I think that the challenge is to be better. And I think that that's what drives Clark Kent / Superman is that, it would be so easy to just go rob banks and melt things down and look through women's clothing.
Yeah.
But he's got to challenge himself and be better. And I really like that when an actor takes on that feeling instead of, like Christopher Reeve with Lois Lane on the balcony where he's like, haha.
Right. And that was, for a good portion of the comic publishing history, like decades and decades, most of the covers were, Superman being a jerk to his closest friends and like playing a trick on them in some way. And you want to pick up the comic to figure out, why is Superman being a jerk? Because it's still known he's supposed to be the ultimate upstanding good guy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you point out, it's like, he's got to be a better man. He's got to be a Superman, sort of taking the path of being morally upstanding and doing only good. Because the other option, the other path is not, this is a Spider-Man thing, but with great power comes great responsibility. Right. Rather than that, you could take the path of, with great power comes a lot of fun.
Great mischief.
Yeah, great mischief. I can rob a bank. I can look through clothes with the X-ray vision, all that stuff. Yeah. And no surprise, there's been
I could snatch a plane out of the air and take it somewhere it's not supposed to go. Ha ha ha! Joke's on them.
Who's the Sky King now? So the other option there is being more like the Nietzschean version of the elite, like the Superman who's like, I can go beyond the limitations of what everyone else has to do, and I don't have to follow the rules myself. And again, no surprise, there's been plenty of stories that have been basically, what if Superman, but he was evil? Which I think oftentimes the temptation to tell those stories is because in modern terms, I think a lot of people in today's world have a tough time relating to the idea of a character who is, there's no dispute, he's just good. Would you agree with that? Do you think that, people can root for a completely good character? Do they need, what do we say, feet of clay or like an Achilles heel or something that's wrong with them in order for us to be able to relate?
Well, there's got to be something that makes you wonder what they'll do, or else why bother investing reading in the story?
Why should I do it?
If you just know that he's going to win immediately, that he's going to do the right thing every time. Like there's no real texture to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to have something that could take him down, like the kryptonite.
Yeah.
You have to have someone that's clever, that's going to match him in a certain way, like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, Lex Luthor often thinks about himself as being an intellectual match for Superman and resents that he has all this power. And he, Lex in his mind, oftentimes in different comics and movies, is taking the stance that Superman, as this elite, superpowered alien character, is taking something away from the self actualization potential of normal humans. It's like we'll all become lazy, Wally type, sitting in our chairs, just drinking big gulps because we know Superman will take care of everything. That's the ultimate, sort of bad ending version of if we've got like a guy like Superman who is good and also powerful and can help with everything. And even like in the first movie from the 70s, even when he messes up, just fly around the earth so fast that he can turn back time, then why do I have to bother doing anything? Why take care of my own problems when I know Superman will take care of them?
Yeah.
But that's sort of the thing that's just one of those things with fiction where if you start to dig too deep, especially like ultimately children's fiction, if you ask too many of these questions, then you're doing more than you need to. It's like don't overthink it, as sometimes people say.
Right. But there's definitely an academic look into all of these things with Superman and the various characters that he's inspired, and
Yeah.
spin-offs from that. But as we were talking about Lex Luthor, it made me curious who your favorite Lex Luthor is.
I was going to say also for the favorite Superman, I think both of the new ones, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor in the new Superman movie from last year, and I'm blanking on the guy's name, but whoever's playing Superman, the new
Now?
Superman, yeah.
Okay.
I think they're both great, and I think they're both. I mean, that version of Lex Luthor, especially, is exactly what I talked about in terms of why he resents and hates Superman. And then the thing I like about this version of Superman that you maybe dislike because we've talked about it is that he's a sensitive soul. That's my charitable interpretation.
That's not what I dislike.
Okay, what do you not care for with the new Superman actor?
What I didn't care for in particular was that the opening scene took so long, and it was just him complaining and crying about being in pain and blah blah blah, and oh, it hurts. I need my dog to drag me home. Like, I don't like to see Superman being a whiny baby.
Yeah. Well, so you say that Superman's a whiny baby. I understand that interpretation. The other side of that, I think, the other side of that coin is that Superman is second guessing himself, not so much in terms of his powers or what he's capable of in terms of punching and, super heroics, but he questions himself and he second guesses himself in terms of the best way to interact with other people like Lois, people like the other superheroes like Mr. Terrific, even people like Lex. Like he's constantly thinking in his own mind. Maybe he's overthinking it too, is another way of, interpreting this. But he's thinking about how can I get my point across without offending the other person? Or, he's got this line in the post-credit scene where he points out, the buildings were taken apart in the third act with all the destruction. They put the buildings back together. Mr. Terrific puts the building back together, but there's this huge, break where it's sort of out of alignment. Superman's like, no, and he's like trying to broach the topic politely and carefully.
Yeah.
But Mr. Terrific gets offended. And Superman's take on that, this is the last line in the movie, is rather than comment on Mr. Terrific being overly sensitive, he says to himself, I can be such a jerk sometimes, which I think is a really neat interpretation of Superman.
Definitely.
That he's able, that he's thinking about, how can I be a kind and sensitive and appreciative and thankful and grateful person.
Yeah.
Even if he's not human, he's got these human, relatable characteristics. Mm-hmm. At least I think so. But I mean, hey, that's Superman. Any other thoughts?
So my other thoughts were on Supergirl.
Okay, Supergirl's got a movie coming out.
Yeah.
What do you think? Should she be a drunk?
No, I'm actually really upset by this portrayal of her. We've had so many great Supergirls,
Yeah.
and to have this one that's kind of like a spoiled brat, that's mean to her dog, that, just has zero responsibility, that just doesn't line up with all of the other versions that we've had. And some people might think that it's more interesting to have like a teenage acting what like Supergirl,
Mm-hmm.
but I just think that she even more so has a feeling of responsibility, that it was her destiny to care for Kal-El, Clark Kent, and that she wouldn't be the one that's slipping.
Yeah. Certainly, you compare the new version to the '80s movie. The '80s movie, she's a lot more of I don't know what the right word for this is. Like not like ditzy, but she's like sort of in wonder and everything. Like she comes to Earth and like everything's so interesting and new to her.
Mm-hmm.
But she also misunderstands people because again, it's like the word that comes. There's got to be a
Like the
better word
guys
for
that
it.
were like catcalling her
Yeah, and she doesn't really understand that what they're doing is inappropriate. I mean,
until it gets too far.
yeah, it gets there, but it's like she's giving everyone a lot of slack,
Yeah.
basically. And the new version of Supergirl that's got a movie coming out certainly doesn't seem like she's doing that in any capacity.
No.
So, and then split the difference. Like in the middle, we've got the Smallville version of Supergirl, who is in the seventh season, and then a little bit of the eighth season, and then a little bit again in the final season. She'll come back one more. We're in the middle of a rewatch right now, so we're in season 8.
Yeah.
We're going along with the Talkville rewatch podcast,
Which is so good. And if you're interested in Superman, I would say this is a great opportunity to just learn more about that story and get some rich perspective from the actors.
Yeah, if you want to read some good Superman comics, there's a bunch of them out there. Superman Birthright, Man of Steel, all the early adventures from Action Comics are very interesting to me as artifacts, mostly of the time and the era that they were made. Well, a lot of the decades before the '80s are that to me. Like they're all interesting for the reason of like they're growing out of this culture of the times. And again, one of the things we commented on, like the mischievous scamp-like qualities of Superman, were a lot more pronounced in those than in more recent ones. But they so here's another example from the comic I mentioned, Superman Birthright, which is an origin story, a modern origin story for Superman that was published in the 2000s. They tried to make Superman in that one a vegetarian for, I think you could guess the reasons, right? Of like Superman would be a vegetarian because he cares for all life.
Yeah.
He's a sensitive guy. He doesn't want to hurt anybody. But that goes against decades of he
Meat
isn't
and potatoes,
yeah,
boy.
literally because he's a farm boy meat and potatoes kid. His favorite dish is I let me say this right. Beef bourguignon, a French stew with beef and bacon.
Okay.
Carrots, onions, potatoes. So really, literally, meat and potatoes kid. Um, and that's still the answer to that trivia question. So if anyone ever asks you what's Superman's favorite food, despite the fact that sometimes he's portrayed as a vegetarian, it's beef bourguignon. Um, but that's again just one of those indications of it's tough to. I mean, especially it's been close to 95 years. It's tough to nail this character down as like he's only this or he's only that. There's been a lot of interpretations for him. I don't think you can do as many interpretations of Superman as you can for Batman. I think Batman is basically there's no wrong way to do Batman. He could be a vampire. He could be campy like in the 60s. He could be anything. I think Superman's a little more limited in what you can do. Like there's certainly ways to do wrong versions of Superman.
I do. So I'm just like stuck on him having a favorite food. It's so weird to me that Superman would eat because he gets his energy from the sun.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Depending on who you ask and depending on what comic you read, Superman doesn't have to do things like eat or sleep. He literally does get all his fuel from our yellow sun, which always makes a space adventure complicated for Superman.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes they call, like one time, here's another good Superman comic, Superman versus Aliens. Literally the aliens from the Alien movie franchise, the
Ooh,
Xenomorphs.
scary.
Yeah, very scary. But in order to make it like an even matchup, it had to be out in space away from the sun. So Superman's like losing his powers and the aliens are getting stronger compared to him. So it
Ooh.
makes it, more dramatic and tension filled for that reason.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like there are like
He
the
needs to invest in some mirrors.
well, it's funny you mentioned that. I was going to say this too. The reason Superman needs mirrors is he can't shave with the razor. He has to use his heat vision and reflect it off a mirror to shave the hairs off his face every morning.
Yeah, but also then he could deflect the sun so that he can continuously have an energy source.
Yeah, that would work too. So, but both that the shaving comment, and I read also in this book, which was a novel adaptation of The Death of Superman. I read as a kid, I think by Roger Stern. Uh, it comments in there about how Superman really only needs 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night. And I remember reading that as a kid and thinking, like, lucky. If imagine all the activities you could do if you only had to sleep 1 hour a night.
All the comic books you could read.
Yeah, all the Superman comics you could read. Which is, I don't know. There's super fans out there. Some of them even working in the industry, like Mark Waid, who wrote Superman Birthright and a bunch of other Superman comics, is sort of well known as being. He knows all the Superman trivia. Like he knows, for example, Superman's social security number, which was published in a comic at some point in the 60s or 70s. I don't know. But I doubt even him. Like I'm just making the point of I doubt anyone has read everything like associated with Superman. Again, after 90, almost 90 years, there's been so many comics, so many books, so many movies, so many TV shows. I mean, it's possible, for example, that someone's seen all the movies and TV shows, but to have read all the comics, what a task.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
I probably I probably couldn't either. But anyway, we love Superman. Superman Day is coming up. I think, if you're near a local comic book store, they're probably going to be doing some deals for Superman comics. So it might be worth dropping in, seeing what they got. And, that's all we got to say about the Man of Steel.
Tell him that we sent you.
Yeah. So until next time, everyone, hey, smash like on the video, subscribe to the channel.
Or else you're never going to see us again.